What's up, horror hounds? Welcome back to Jorge's House of Horrors, where we continue to explore how America lost its collective mind in the 1980s. I'm your host, Jorge, and today we're cranking up the volume to 11 as we dive into perhaps the loudest chapter of the Satanic Panic. That's right, we're talking about heavy metal music, the soundtrack that supposedly had kids summoning demons fast. Alright, it's 1985. A generation of teenagers are locked in their bedrooms with posters of long-haired men in makeup and leather. Oh yeah. Listening to thunderous drums and screaming vocals, not to worship Satan, but because it sounds awesome and pisses off their parents. Meanwhile, those same parents are attending church seminars where self-proclaimed experts play records backwards to reveal supposed messages about devil worship and suicide. How did music featuring guys with teased hair and spandex become considered a direct pipeline to hell? Let's drop the needle on this hysteria and find out. Alrighty. So, heavy metal emerged in the late 60s and early 70s, and I'm talking about the 1960s and 1970s, y'all. We're getting old here. With bands like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and Deep Purple. They were drawing inspiration from the blues, psychedelic rock, and the darker themes that mirrored the disillusionment of the Vietnam War. By the late 1970s, the genre had developed a devoted following, particularly among, working class teens looking for an outlet for their frustrations and creative energy. The trouble began brewing as heavy metal's imagery increasingly incorporated elements that horrified conservative America. Occult symbols, gothic aesthetics, and theatrical performances meant to shock and entertain. When Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat during a concert in 1982, moral guardians found the perfect poster child for metal's supposed depravity. Yeah, the Prince of Darkness himself. See, the metal controversy might have remained just another generational music gap if not for the efforts of Tipper Gore. Yes, that Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, and the Parents Music Resource Center, PMRC. See, after Gore overheard her young daughter listening to Prince's Darling Nikki in 1985, she founded the PMRC with other Washington wives to combat porn rock. These were mainly spouses of politicians, because what else are they going to do, right? While the PMRC focused broadly on explicit content during the heavy metal era, it received special attention for its supposed satanic elements. The organization's infamous Filthy 15 list of objectionable songs included multiple metal tracks flagged for occult content. Some of these groups are using symbols and language that have been traditionally associated with devil worship and the occult, Gore claimed in congressional testimony. This isn't just about sex and violence, it's about the corruption of our children's souls. The mainstream media, eager for sensational stories involving teenagers in danger, amplified these concerns. Surprise, surprise. Local news programs ran special investigations. I remember a few of these, and the most famous of these would be Geraldo, and we'll get into that in a little bit. See, the evangelical Christian leaders quickly joined the anti-metal crusade as well. They saw an opportunity to demonstrate their moral authority and boost their relevance. Televangelist Jimmy Swaggart told his followers that rock music is the new pornography and specifically called out heavy metal as a tool Satan uses to lead young people to hell. Churches across America held record-burning events where there would be a big bonfire and teenagers were encouraged to destroy their metal albums and shirts and posters and everything that went along with it. There were religious seminars that featured Reformed ex-Satanists, which were found to be frauds for the most part, and they claimed to have participated in ritual sacrifices organized by metal bands. Bob Larson, a Christian radio host who built an entire career on metal fear-mongering, published books like Satanism, The Seduction of America's Youth, which claimed bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were recruiting teenagers into actual satanic cults. See, Larson warned us that these aren't just musicians, they're ministers of Satan preaching his gospel of rebellion, sexual perversion, violence, and self-destruction. Whew, and what evidence did these moral crusaders offer for metal's demonic influence? Well, there were three main categories. First, it was backmasking. See, backmasking is the idea that playing a record backward revealed hidden satanic messages. The most famous example was Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, where they said it contained the message backwards, "Oh, here's to my sweet Satan." Demonstrators would play records backwards at PTA meetings and church gatherings, letting imaginations run wild as listeners heard garbled phrases supposedly praising the devil. Who knows? Second, album artwork, which I guess I could see that happening. Band logos featuring pentagrams, skulls, demons, and other occult imagery were presented as evidence of actual satanic devotion, rather than theatrical marketing aimed at rebellious teenagers. Third, there were isolated lyrics, right? Often taken completely out of context, as per usual, were analyzed for supposed satanic content. Metal's metaphorical language about hell, demons, and the dark side of human nature was interpreted with literal-minded fear. These people couldn't tell the difference between Halloween and a black mass. Metal bands were using Satan the same way horror movies use monsters. It was a shorthand for rebellion and guaranteed way to shock adults. Plain and simple. The metal panic reached its legal climax in 1990 with the trial of Judas Priest. They were accused of embedding subliminal messages in their song Better By You, Better Than Me, that allegedly caused the suicide attempts of two Nevada teenagers. Though the case was eventually dismissed, it demonstrated how far the hysteria had gone. A British heavy metal band found itself in court defending it against accusations of mind control. Now, even more disturbing, as we saw in the West Memphis 3 video, the three teenagers were convicted of murdering three children largely because one listened to Metallica and read books about Wicca. And this was all despite a complete lack of physical evidence, and prosecutors successfully argued that the teens' interest in heavy metal music proved their involvement in satanic ritual murder. It would take 18 years before new DNA evidence and public pressure would free them. You should go back and listen to that video. All right. Now, the most absurd media moment came when the Geraldo Rivera aired his infamous 1988 special. And yes, it was the Geraldo Rivera. It was Devil Worship, Exposing Satan's Underground. Now, I remember watching this as a kid, and I was one of about 20 million Americans who saw this. Geraldo dramatically tied heavy metal to a supposed epidemic of satanic ritual abuse, declaring, "Estimates are that there are over 1 million Satanists in this country." Yeah, the majority of them are linked to a network of cults that kill and kill again. The moral panic had serious consequences for young metal fans. Schools implemented dress codes specifically targeting metal fashion. Police departments created satanic crime units that viewed metal t-shirts as evidence of criminal tendencies. Parents sent teenagers to therapy or even religious deprogramming camps to cure their metal obsessions. One former teen metalhead recalled his parents found his Slayer cassette and called their pastor over for an intervention. Crazy. And the irony, of course, was that studies consistently showed metal fans were often thoughtful, creative individuals using the music as a healthy outlet for normal teenage emotions. Many bands were writing complex lyrics addressing serious social issues like war, environmental destruction, and mental health, topics often ignored in other musical genres. So, this was far from causing psychological problems. Heavy metal music actually helped many adolescents process difficult emotions in constructive ways. The fear epidemic of metal-induced violence and suicide simply just never materialized. By the mid-1990s, the evidence against the anti-metal crusade was mounting. The FBI acknowledged there was no evidence of organized satanic criminal activity. Studies found no connection between heavy metal and increased rates of suicide or violence. The predicted generation of satanic metal devotees had grown up to become functioning, productive adults. The PMRC's campaign resulted only in parental advisory stickers. Yeah, we all know those. And that, for me, it made me want to go buy the album even more, which it increased their appeal to rebellious teenagers like me. Many of the preachers who had led the charge against metal were themselves disgraced by financial and sexual scandals, which you can see time and time again. As one former at-risk metal fan put it, metal didn't push me towards Satan, it saved me from depression. When I feel alienated and alone, the metal community gave me somewhere I belonged. Despite being vindicated, heavy metal and its fans bore the stigma of the moral panic for decades. Metal remained marginalized in mainstream media, and stereotypes of metal fans as violent, unintelligent deviants persisted in popular culture. Now, the ultimate irony came in the 2000s and 2010s when heavy metal began receiving critical recognition as a sophisticated art form. Suddenly, the music once condemned as Satan's soundtrack was being studied by musicologists for its complex compositions taught in university courses and exhibited in museum retrospectives. By 2020, aging metal pioneers were receiving Lifetime Achievement Awards. Metal festivals were attracting hundreds of thousands of peaceful fans, and the genre had spread globally as a form of creative expression and cultural resistance. The very aspects that made moral crusaders suspicious, the loudness, the intensity, the exploration of dark themes, were now recognized as cathartic and even therapeutic. The heavy metal moral panic revealed something important about Satanic Panic as a whole. It was never really about the music, it was about controlling youth culture, maintaining authority, and exploiting parents' fears for political and religious gain. As Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, who famously testified against censorship at the 1985 PMRC Senate hearings, observed, they weren't concerned about protecting kids, they were concerned about controlling what kids were allowed to think. Rock and roll has always been about freedom. And that's what scared them the most. In the end, the devil horns that terrified parents became a universal symbol of musical enthusiasm adopted by fans of all genres. The real spell being cast wasn't by the musicians, it was by the moral entrepreneurs trying to enchant America with their politics of fear. And there you have it. The story of how distorted guitars and double bass drums became the sound of Satan in America's imagination. So, if this episode made you crank your speakers to unholy volumes, smash that like button and hit the subscribe button. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss our Media Meltdown journey next Friday. Drop your thoughts in the comments section where you were you a metalhead who got sent to religious counseling? Did your parents make you burn your Iron Maiden posters, or were you one of the lucky ones whose parents actually understood that enjoying the number of the beast didn't make you a beast yourself? All right, this is Jorge, reminding you that sometimes the real demonic influence isn't in the music that moves you. It's in the moral panic profiteering to try to silence your voice. Until next time, stay horrified, stay informed, and remember to always look beyond the headlines to find the truth hidden inside the noise. Thank you.